I'm Frederick Rogers, and I'm professor of geology and environmental science here at Franklin Pierce University.
What problems do single-use plastics give to the environment, and what needs to be done?
They create a lot of problems in the environment. First of all, plastics are very chemically stable and physically rugged items, and so they do not degrade rapidly. They can stick around for long, long periods of time. And so if they're not recycled, there's a big problem with the volume they take up in landfills, for example. There's a real problem with their littering the landscape, the roadways. For example, they're going to just be laying there for a long time before they ever disappear. There's a big problem with them in terms of littering the marine environment as well, not just the shoreline areas and the beaches and so on, but also out in the distant parts of the ocean as well. So there's a whole lot of environmental issues associated with plastics, single-use plastics that are not recycled. They're causing kind of a multitude of problems. In addition to the landfill problem that's there if these things don't get recycled. So much of the landfills now do get filled up with these things, take up a big volume of space there. You've got aside from the aesthetic problem there that's with plastic litter all around the landscape, we've also got this problem of, if you take a look at plastics chemically, they're basically compounds that are referred to as polymers, which are made up of molecular units known as monomers, which link up to form the polymers. And we know now that these monomers can leach out into, if you're drinking hot beverages in plastic cups. Well, so many things are in plastic these days. Those monomers can leak out, and some of those also are now being shown to have caused problems with our endocrine system and causing hormonal disruptions, various kinds as well. So they have these health effects as well that we're seeing now emerging really across the globe there. And in addition to that, if you start talking about impacts on wildlife, for example, those are substantial, especially in the oceanic realm. I'm most familiar with that because I teach the oceans course here and talk directly about this at various points along the way. But a whole lot of plastic that does not get recycled ends up getting washed into the oceans ultimately and carried by current systems basically around the entire ocean basin. And so now we have developed out in the central Pacific, of all places, this huge giant patch called the Great Pacific Garbage Patch of floating plastic debris that's as big as whole states. There's estimates are anywhere from the size of Rhode Island to the size of Texas. And these patches seem to be developing in the other parts of the oceans as well, Southern Pacific, North Atlantic, South Atlantic, and they are impacting marine life tremendously. Organisms at all levels in the food chains out there are consuming these things and in many cases dying as a result of that. And it's particularly hard hit to the seabird populations because they will mistake these things for something that's edible to eat and fill themselves up with it and then die because of malnutrition. They can't digest the plastics. They're even feeding their chicks this, so they're impacting the next generation to come along as well. And there's a tremendous problem with that in even some very remote islands out in the Pacific Ocean, especially, and huge piles of plastic littering beaches now in very remote areas, places you wouldn't even expect to see this happening. So there's a whole range of impacts of this that have to do with how do you dispose of this stuff in a reasonable way. It's a big aesthetic problem. There are health issues and major ecological issues with impacts on wildlife as well, and probably particularly apparent, as I said, in the marine realm these days. So many problems with it.